Beneath this old photograph lies the following inscription. The final separation of Rockport, Maine from its nearest neighbor, Camden, Maine, took place on February 25th, 1891. As far as the census and tax folks were concerned, Camden Rockport was one town. But to the residents of Camden and Rockport, there were two distinctly different towns. Camden had a larger downtown area and more wealthy citizens, while Rockport had the lime industry and a profitable ice business, which employed many more people. Camdenites looked down at Rockport folks, and Rockporters thought Camden folk were superior.
Rockport boys would get over by the line, and then we'd stop. They used to say, Camden bums live on rum. Yep. And we'd say, Rockport paddywhackers live on soda crackers.
They used to get out there by the quarries of the town line, throw rocks at each other. It was a pastime for in the evening.
There was always a difference in the class of people or in Camden and Rockport. And when Rockport needed help to restore a bridge, to rebuild a bridge across Goose River, Camden did not want to help. And there was, I just think that sometimes Rockport felt too that there was a sense of jealousy, and we never could figure out why.
Hostility between the two towns exaggerated a dispute in 1884 over whether or not Rockport should have a new iron bridge over Goose River. Camden residents felt the old bridge was sufficient, but Rockport residents wanted a new bridge that would be safer. Camden residents didn't feel that they should pay for this luxury. They insisted that the Rockport part of Camden separate and become its own town.
They decided that Camden wanted to withdraw and wanted to go on their own, and so I think Rockport said, good enough, go. That was just about the idea of the thing, you know. They just felt that, well, we can do it alone.
In 1891, the tension between the residents of Camden and the Rockport part of Camden reached a fever pitch. As the newspapers reported it, today, February 25th, 1891, Rockport, Maine and Camden, Maine have finally decided to separate. The two communities have little socially and economically in common. Rockport is the more rural in character, while Camden has established itself as a center of trade. In a recent meeting, a climax was reached. Several brawls have been reported in recent days.
You had to save and skimp and try to shovel snow, whatever you can find. All the kids shovel snow. I shovel snow. Cost 25 cents an hour. We shoveled snow. We shoveled the sidewalks and shoveled across the bridge, and all the sidewalks were shoveled in those days. And the kids did it.
And it's all handwork, actually. You know, you hired a neighbor that had a team of horses plow and harry your garden. From there on, it was hoeing hand and weeding.
My father used to use his his horse and wagon, and every Saturday would go to Rockport to peddle eggs and butter. And as a little girl, I used to go with him. And that's when and how I learned to make change.
Businesses flourished. Rockport Ice Company, the Story Shirt Factory, the cooperage and grist mill of S.C. and H.L. Shepherd Company, not to mention the carpenters, masons, boat builders, sail makers, and granite workers. Most important economically, Rockport was to become the center of one of the greatest lime-producing regions in America. Rockport's lime industry, the largest employer in the area. The quaint, charming, and quiet Rockport of today was, around 1900, an industrial, noisy, smoky place. The lime kiln dominated the town. Freshly cut lime rock was brought from several local quarries to the kilns for processing. The kilns were huge, pressurized ovens that baked the lime, which was then bagged and used for cement mortar.
They would go out on a platform with cables coming down to four corners of the platform with no sides on it at all, and just stand on that platform and go down hundreds of feet down into that quarry. The Jacob Quarry that's right beside the Union Street is the deepest one, and I remember looking down in there, and they looked like flies down there. And down in there they were drilling and blasting, and lots and lots of injuries. And the same thing down at the kilns, where they brought the limestone over and put it into the tops of the kilns, and down below where the live lime came out, if any water touched them, they would spark up, and the men were burned very often, sometimes lost a hand or something, lost the eye, things like that, because it was really, really hard work, and the hours were long because those kilns had to be going 24 hours a day.
They smoked up the whole town. Sometimes the smoke literally obscured the sunlight from the Rockport skyline.
We had the best lime in the world in Rockport, Camden. Best lime in the world. And the reason we lost it, because China had good lime and they could produce it for 1/3 of what we were doing. That's the reason we lost it.
You could come into Rockport Harbor, and the place was so full of boats that you could walk right from one shore to the other, boat to boat, because there were boats in there bringing in wood, to burn the lime kilns, boats in there loading for lime, and then boats in there loading for ice, for the Rockport ice.
Lily Pond, not only famous for its beauty, but for the purity of its water and its ice, which was sold all over the world.
You didn't make ice in them days. No one knew how. You didn't have a machine that made ice. The only ice there was anywhere in the world is what was cut off in Lily Pond or some other pond.
The Rockport Ice Company provided work for the men who cut it, and summer work for the men who stored it and shipped it.
The ice was cut by hand, and it had big saws, and you'd only have one man using those saws because he couldn't get on the other end. It was in the water down below. And then they were put onto sleds with horses that are called jiggers. They were hauled over to the ice houses across the harbor below Mechanic Street. And that had about 3 or 4 big ice houses. And they went on a conveyor belt and were hoisted up on a conveyor belt, so that was stacks and stacks of chunks of square ice. And those were put onto the big barges and shipped down all through the South, because there was no refrigeration in those days.
The blocks of ice slid from Lily Pond to the harbor, where large ships packed with sawdust carried the ice to the southern United States, the Caribbean, and South America.
They used to call it the Rockport Blue Ice, because it was so clear that you could put a dime down, set a cake of ice on it, and look down through the cake and read the date on the dime.
1904, a year for endings. That was the year the last commercial ship was built in Rockport, and also the last year for the ice industry, which came to an end with the introduction of refrigeration. Today, the lilies still grow in Lily Pond, but the water, though not as bad as it was 6 years ago, is not good enough to drink. And in 1907, a great fire destroyed the Rockport lime kiln. Although firemen worked heroically, the fire could not be put out because water cannot extinguish burning lime. That fire marked the end of Rockport's last major industry. It was common for a businessman to share a meal with a poor farmer on a cold winter night. In the 1923 tax report, there is a listing for care of the poor and the sum of $3,349 set aside so that Rockport could take care of its less fortunate.
Nobody ever thought about somebody else's property. I mean, they knew it was their property, but there was no law against walking across it or going freely on the beach and on the shipyards and so forth like that. It seemed to be common ground, really.
It'd come a farming time we should have a garden and plant some grain and stuff. I came home from the milk cart one day and the field was full of neighbors plowing and putting our garden in. They did such things as that all the time.
My father, every spring, he would take his tractor and he'd ride down the road and he'd stop at these different places, plow up their gardens, and then go back so many days later and harrow them so they'd have a garden. That's just one example. My mother didn't get a driver's license till she was about 50, but she used to pick up neighbors who needed rides to go grocery shopping.
Rockport residents not only cared about each other's well-being, but they also cared about the land. Many farmers, town residents, and summer people saw themselves as stewards of their land, replenishing the soil, planting trees, keeping the land beautiful and healthy. The results of that effort are evident all around Rockport today. When school let out and summer came, it was a wonderful time in Rockport. There were swim meets held in the harbor, camping and hiking in the hills, a carnival, and Oakland Park, a fabulous amusement area. The teenagers loved it all.
They had a pavilion, a big dance hall, a dining room, ice cream parlors, a ferry boat, and all the families and all school children and the Sunday school children all went there for picnics. And they had ball games, baseball games, at least 2 a week, and sometimes they had dances 3 times a week. It was really something in the summertime, and it was beautiful. If you ever saw the moon coming up out of the bay, and on a nice waltz with a nice guy, you know, it was beautiful, and I loved it. I think he came from Freeport, and they were up there, and I think his father was a minister, and so we were about 14, I guess, or something like that, and so he wanted to take me to the movies in Camden, and so I was allowed to go, and after the movies, we went into the Arico Spa, which is about where the, well, it's just below Laverdia's. In one of those little buildings now, you know, they have little lunchrooms there. Well, he took me in there, and we sat up at the counters, the marble counters, and we had a banana split. We didn't just have one banana split, we had 2 banana splits. Can you imagine?
The floating of the Dodge House was a strange sight to see. But older Rockport residents say that it was not as strange as the story of the donut.
Down to Gregory's in Gun Cove. He was in the Navy, the boy. He came home and they made donuts no hole in them. Yeah. And he said, you know what they do in the Navy? He said, they put a hole in them donuts. And she said, what for? And he said, I don't know, they cook better or something. So she made the first, in this area, the first hole in the donut.
That's great.
Yeah, Mrs. Gregory.
The donut was invented in the sailing ship times, so the sail on a helm on a spoke, he'd put a donut there so he could eat it. And he's steering the ship, you know. Probably had 2 or 3 donuts on it.
As far as I know, my mother invented them. She always had a jar of donuts under the cupboard. Every kid in the neighborhood stopped our house to get the school bus, and a lot of them was looking for a donut.
While it seems true that the donut was invented by a Rockport resident, As of the making of this program, it appears that no one in Rockport profited from this brilliant discovery. Everything changed for Rockport citizens and for the rest of America after October 1929. The Great Depression hit Rockport hard, but because of the rural farming communities and their ability to grow food, Rockport residents did not starve, but they had no money to improve their homes and their industries.
If we had a depression now, people in the cities and any congested area will be hurting. But as far as out here where we were, I mean, it wasn't too bad.
The Depression is supposed to be hard times, but you had more free time, and you had to make your own way. And like if we played ball, we had to get off field and fix it up, and somebody had a bat, and somebody had a ball. If we went skiing, we had our homemade skis. We had to make our own ski trails, our own jumps, and I think it was good for you.
There was a woman, a wealthy summer long-time resident who loved Rockport and its people. She was a member of the well-known Bach family, and her name was Mary Louise Bach.
Mrs. Bach was a perfectly lovely person, and a tall, stately-looking lady, and she treated everybody just the same. There wasn't a feeling between these people to the other people, but I think that a lot of the natives felt, lower by themselves, But she really felt the need for help here, and she did so much. My oldest brother got a loan from Cyrus H. Curtis, Mary Louise Bach Curtis's father, because my father was working for him at this time, and he got a $500 loan. And so when he went back to pay it, he says, no, he says, pass it on to the next brother. And so we did, and they passed it on all the way down through the family.
Mary Bach contributed to individuals in the town by rebuilding their houses, loaning them money for school expenses and for their businesses, and by rebuilding the decaying harbor. She saw to it that the harbor area had ample places for boating, bathing, and housing.
All the new people in town, they come here because they like the place we got. I guess they got treated like everybody else, as far as I know. I didn't never wasted any time being different to them. I don't know that anyone else ever did. They came here because they liked the way we did things.
In the 1960s and 70s, thousands of tourists were attracted to Rockport's most extraordinary resident ever, Andre, the seal. Andre was found by fisherman Harry Goodrich. Over a 16-year period, the two developed a close friendship, and for a time, Andre even lived at the Goodrich home. Together, they not only developed an array of tricks, but Harry also learned of his friend's remarkable intelligence. Andre could locate and retrieve submerged objects at long distances. He responded to language, and he frolicked on equal terms with skin divers. Word about Andre quickly got around, and when Harry and Andre practiced tricks in the harbor, a crowd often gathered. By the early 1970s, the crowds grew quite large, and Andre began attracting nationwide media attention. There were many articles written about him, and he even appeared on national television. Andre was more than an extraordinary pet. He was also a town character who was named Honorary Harbor Master because of all he had done for Rockport. Although he roamed free from Boston to Maine, he never failed to return home. When Andre died at 22 years of age, Jane Wasey designed and built a sculpture of his likeness, which now sits facing the sea at the head of Rockport Harbor. If you drive up Route 1 from Rockland to Camden, you'd never know Rockport was there unless you turned right on Pascal Avenue. Many Rockport year-round residents wish that folks didn't know that Pascal Avenue takes you to Rockport. But each year, folks do know, and several 100,000 tourists pass through. Today, Rockport, Maine is home for 2,854 well-known and not so well-known extraordinary, ordinary residents. Rockport and Camden get along just fine these days. The children of the two towns share the same school, and the adults have finally decided to connect their sewer line. Back in 1891, the dispute over rebuilding Goose River Bridge sent Rockport and Camden their separate ways. In the century since, the bridge has been rebuilt numerous times, and Rockport has experienced many changes. And the view of Rockport Harbor is still breathtaking.
It is the most beautiful spot, and I love it. I love the people. I think that Rockport is a wonderful place to live, and my father spoke about it the same way. He says in this letter that he had written to me one time, and he says, I'm looking down on the harbor and thinking of it as it used to be and how it was before man came here. And then he says, and now I can feel so good in standing here, and never did I realize, he said, that I would have part in making this so beautiful. So you see, the love has stayed with it, and it stays with you.
I've been following the same footsteps as my forefathers have for 5 generations right here. Nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Of course, I wouldn't trade no place on earth for Rockport, my home. The life, the living, freedom, your way of life, your neighbors. The good will always be here if you use it, if you work it.